This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build your perfect website. So, welcome back, and today I'm really excited because I've finally got my hands on a pocketable camera that many of you guys have recommended to me, so I'm really interested to see how this fares in today's video. So if you've been following along recently, you'll probably know that I've been on the lookout for a pocketable camera, but something that will suit my everyday needs. So something that I can put on the kitchen table, let my family members use, something that I can just pick up and use every day when I'm out and about doing walks with my dogs, or, you know, just going everywhere basically. And I'm really interested to see if this is the one. Yeah, anyway, let's go and find out. Let's put it to the test. So it really has been a bit of a challenge to find a camera that's going to tick all of the boxes that I need it to tick. So a big thanks to everybody that did send in a message or dropped a comment in my earlier videos. Yeah, a big thanks. By the way, I'm working on my Between the Hills photography project today, and we're walking to the village of Solva, so I'm really hopeful there'll be some interesting subjects to photograph along the way. And you never know, we may even shoot some landscapes as well with this new camera. So a few months ago, you might recall, I did a video about the Fuji X100VI, and it was a camera I really enjoyed using. However, there's a couple of reasons that I didn't pick that camera up. The first was I felt 35mm full frame equivalent was a little bit too wide for the type of photography that I'll be doing on this project and for my everyday needs. Secondly, I think at £1,600, it was a lot of money to spend to shield the microphone from the wind. It's a lot of money to spend on something that will probably get a lot of use. I want my family to use it. I just want to leave it on the table like I mentioned before. And I don't want to be too precious about it. And I think had I bought the X100VI, I think I probably wouldn't have used it as much. So yeah, that's why I didn't pick it up. And thirdly, actually the 40 megapixel files are probably too large for my everyday needs. So the camera is the Panasonic Lumix GX85 or GX80, depending on where you are in the world. And yeah, this was first released in 2016, and it was sold in the UK up until about 2022, 2023, I think. So it's had quite a long run. And yeah, I bought this used, obviously, and it's only done about 16,000 photos, and it's, yeah, to be honest, mint condition. There's a tiny little ding on this side here that you can hardly see. So yeah, thoroughly impressed with the way it looks. Looks great. Now, this isn't a camera review, but I will be sharing a few of my thoughts about this camera as we move through the video, because, you know, I think it's an absolute bargain. I have to say, there's not many cameras out there that will do what this can do for the price point. So there's some nice light at the minute, just looking over this headland. Might see if I can take a quick landscape-ish looking shot. Yeah, actually, it looks quite good at the minute. Maybe a sneaky black and white. So you can pick up a Panasonic GX85 from anywhere between £150 to £300 in the UK. And I paid £220 for mine, which feels like a really good deal to me. The lens I've got attached is the Panasonic 20mm f1.7 prime lens. And I have to say, it really suits this body. Do let me know in the comments if you think this lens and camera combo looks good. I'd just mentioned about the lens. I paid £160 for my copy of the 20mm f1.7, but you can buy them new. I think new they're about £270. So yeah, and I think they come in black and silver, so depending on what colour body you get, it's yeah, works out quite well. Oh, this looks nice. Oh, there's definitely a shot here. A Between the Hills shot, definitely. Boats, river estuary, some buildings, nice colours. Definitely worth a shot. So it's a little bit awkward because there's a boat just down here that's just kind of half behind that little hawthorn bush there. It would be much better if it's a little bit further out in the estuary. And also I think I'd prefer a tighter crop in here, maybe not show any sky. I guess that's the downside of shooting with a fixed focal length. Anyway, yeah, you have to embrace those restrictions and go with the flow a little bit, I think. Anyway, yeah, lovely little scene. It'd be great if I could get down there, I think. One of the things with shooting with the prime lens, isn't it, is you've got to put in the legwork. But, you know, I think that's one of the challenges I love embracing. You know, if I had a zoom lens there, I'm just going to zoom in on that composition and get the framing and probably not try and venture down to the bottom to see if I can see something else. And who knows what I might find down there. So yeah, this could open up even more photographic opportunities. So it's definitely a plus, isn't it, using a prime lens for these type of photo walks. It's absolutely brilliant. Loving it, absolutely loving it. So the path does actually fork off back down that way. So that's where we're going to head. Hopefully we can get a better angle. So this camera has a micro 4/3 sensor, so that means that this 20mm prime lens, if you times it by the crop factor of ×2, you'll get a full frame equivalent focal length, meaning this 20mm gives you a similar field of view to a 40mm prime lens, which is just a little bit tighter than 35 and obviously a little bit wider than 50. So I think it might work out really well for this project actually. So there's a really interesting looking area down here that's definitely got some potential. But before we take a look at that, I'd just like to thank the sponsor of this week's video, which is Squarespace. Now, I've been using Squarespace for years and building a website with them is incredibly easy because they've got award-winning templates and built-in AI tools that can help you create a personalised site in no time at all. Alongside great looking galleries to host your photos and a fantastic blog section, one of my favourite features is the ability to send out my weekly photography newsletter, all from the same platform, which helps me to connect with you on a more personal level, which I absolutely love. Honestly, Squarespace just makes everything so simple. There's a special link in the video description and clicking it really does help to support this channel as well. So to set up your very own website, be sure to check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/IanWorth to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Right, let's get cracking. So let me crouch down here for a second to get out of this bitingly cold wind. So we're having a bit of a trend at the minute. We're getting this wind from the southeast. It's very, very cold. We've had lots of overcast conditions and lots of rain as well. So it's been very difficult actually to get out and shoot over the last few weeks. Nevertheless, I want to talk a bit more about the camera. So I paid, £380 for this in total, the lens and body, combination. And that feels like a price point to me that I'm comfortable handing it to my kids or family members and saying, yeah, go and shoot with this for the day, why not? Or leaving it on the table just so it's there for anybody to pick up. It's great as well if I go down to the beach and maybe I want to go for a swim. I'm comfortable leaving that in a bag. I know it's still a significant amount of money, but I'm definitely going to be using this camera more because of its price point than I would if I'd have spent, say, £1,600 on like an X106 or something like that. Now, this actually does tick a lot of boxes because it's an interchangeable lens camera. Obviously I've got the 20mm prime lens on here. It's got an electronic viewfinder. It's got the tilting screen, which I love for this type of work. It's got 4K video shooting and IBIS as well, which actually is really good. I'm really impressed with the IBIS so far. So yeah, it's got a lot of tools that I really need, especially if I'm doing these type of videos. I've just got the action camera there, so it's really good to get some B-roll shots with this as well. So stabilized footage means I don't need a tripod. So yeah, that works out really well. Now, one thing that really surprised me about this camera is when I first picked it up, I was very, very surprised about the premium feel of the body. It's very weighty. I wish I could pass it through the screen and let you feel it. It's very weighty and it definitely has a premium feel about it, which I was really surprised by. So this looks like a very interesting structure, and I know exactly what these buildings are. So these interesting structures are called lime kilns, and they were used for burning limestone to make lime for agriculture and building work. So there's many of these dotted around the Pembrokeshire county, and they're really, really interesting. So the lime would have been used for scattering on the fields to use as a fertiliser or to counteract soil acidity. And the lime would also be used in mortar for constructing buildings. So a lot of the buildings around here would have had, lime mortar. So yeah, really interesting, fantastic structures, and I'm really pleased that they're still here. So as mentioned, this camera ticks a lot of boxes for me, but there are a few things that are maybe not quite 100%. So I thought I'd just cover those now, because it's always good to talk about the negatives as well as the positives, isn't it? So it doesn't have a mic or headphone jack. Now that's not a massive deal breaker, because I can just sync up my audio later, so it doesn't bother me too much. The EVF is a little bit on the small side, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit later on in the video. It doesn't have any weather sealing. Now, I don't think that's too much of a big deal either, although it is a negative, because it's a pocketable camera, and providing I've got a waterproof jacket on, it's going to be in the pocket most of the time, so I think that's absolutely fine. It does only have a 16 megapixel sensor. Now, that might be a deal breaker for some. For me, I can see both sides of the coin here. Like I mentioned earlier, the Fuji X100VI, it's got a 40 megapixel sensor, and for my everyday needs, it's too much. It's just taking up, valuable hard drive space that, I just don't need it to use. So yeah, 16 megapixels is absolutely fine for everyday photography. That will print roughly an A3 print at 300 ppi. So yeah, still a decent sized print and a little bit of croppability. It doesn't have phase detection autofocus, so if you do rely heavily on autofocus, you're going to have to make do with the contrast detection autofocus, I'm afraid. Now, it does have a short battery life. I'm already through about half a battery, and I am carrying a power brick in the bottom of my jacket. So yeah, just in case it runs out, because I only have one battery. But yeah, just a few negatives, but I don't think any of them are particularly deal breakers. Anyway, just read a really interesting fact back there. Back in the 1840s, ships used to sail from this tiny little harbour all the way to the USA, which is pretty incredible to think, really, isn't it? And the fare was only £4 back then, so yeah, how times have changed. But anyway, we're heading back down to the harbour now, so I'm hopeful we can find something else to shoot. Would have been nice to get something in the town there, in the little village, but yeah, the light was really flat. Anyway, let's head down here a bit further. So I have to keep reminding myself about my aperture settings. Today I've been shooting at around about f5.6. Usually when I'm on the Fuji gear, which is APS-C, I'm shooting around about f8 because I like to get quite a large depth of field. So yeah, you just have to bear in mind about diffraction, because it kicks in a little bit sooner with Micro Four Thirds than it does on APS-C and full frame cameras. So yeah, 5.6 seems to be working quite well for me today. Well, some interesting subjects back there, I think. Probably the best of what we've got this afternoon. Now, I just wanted to touch on the viewfinder. Now, I don't know if I'll be able to show you through the viewfinder, but as you can see, it's quite small, which is absolutely fine. It's a small camera, you expect it to be small. However, it is quite tricky actually to see the actual image in the viewfinder. If you're slightly out of kilter or off center a little bit, you get this kind of rainbow fringing is what I could describe it as. It's a little bit strange, yeah, but you get used to it, and I think I'd rather have that than not have one at all. So it definitely doesn't compare to the Fuji X100's optical viewfinder, which is just absolutely stunning. I really just love that viewfinder. It's so good. I keep going on about it, but yeah, it's absolutely fantastic because you can see what the eye sees, but you've got the overlaid histogram on your settings. It's just absolutely fantastic. Such a great experience, and it's huge as well. When you look through it, you just feel completely immersed in the photo. So yeah, such a great viewfinder that is. So it is starting to rain, as it said it would, so I think I'm going to wrap the video up. If you enjoyed this week's video, please be sure to give it a like, because that really does help me out. And if you really enjoyed it, there's another one at the top there. And over on this side, there's a link to my guidebook all about how I use light in the landscape. It's completely free, so go and check that out if you're interested. Anyway, take care, and I hope to see you all again next week.